Hello, good evening and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I'm here with Kev, ghosting in at the far post, and joining us. Finally, we've been negotiating over the last few months and we've got him on the podcast for our fans forum, Frankie from All Villa No Filler podcast. How you doing, mate?
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been amazing to watch the growth of your podcast, to be honest. It's been absolutely brilliant. I feel like we started maybe a similar-ish time. So brilliant to see how it's grown, and the great community we have within the Villa fan base and the Villa podcast. I think it's just a very communal feel. So thanks so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Great to have you. And like we say, me and Frankie were catching up backstage, and then Kev jumps on in the intro, as always. How you doing, mate?
Good, mate. Listen, I'm normally on a bit before the intro. Give me some credit, all right? Give me some. Sometimes I'm on 3 seconds before the intro. But no, mate, I'm all right. Good to be here. Dash back from football. I had to clean myself up. You don't want to see me look in the state. You're thinking, are you sure you've had a shower? Oh, I'll have less of that. Let's talk all things Villa. Let's go.
Exactly. Good evening to everyone in the chat. I'll try and get through as many of your comments as possible. Keep your comments, questions for Frankie, questions for us coming in, anything to do with Villa on or off the pitch, or general football. We're gonna cover England first because there's been some big news with England today. Make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. We are marching well on the way to 5,000 subs, so keep us going, help us get there, like, subscribe, and keep your comments flowing. Frankie, I'll come to you first because Lee Carsley, he had a bit of a decent time of it in the first batch of Nations League games, and then tried this crazy experiment, which we'll talk about in a bit, which ruined chances for our man Ollie Watkins a lot heavily. But he tried this crazy experiment and then was really evasive with the question about the manager, and said he didn't want it, then said he did want it, and then all this. And then today, it's all come out. Thomas Tuchel has been in talk since July, and now he's the England manager. How do you feel about, first of all, the situation and Thomas Tuchel now being the England manager?
Yeah, it's quite surreal. I mean, Tuchel's name was sort of getting linked in the last few days, and I sort of wondered in the back of my mind whether it was kind of a bit of it might end up at Manchester United. He might be sending signals to them, if you're not sure about Ten Hag, I'm right here. And I think they probably should have gone for him if that was the case. But the fact he's gone to England now, with Lee Carsley, he's done a fantastic job with the under-21s. And I think that's probably where he himself maybe wants to stay. He's obviously from the Sheldon area, very close to Solihull, where I'm from. So I know he's Birmingham City, but I do feel a little bit of loyalty. I want to see him do well, I think he did a good job in most of the England games he actually took charge of. But I think it was on him to experiment in games in this sort of international break. At some point, he's got to experiment and see what works and what doesn't. Unfortunately, what he did really did not work at all, and probably has cost him any sort of chance of the job. And it is a shame Ollie Watkins didn't start. If Harry Kane's off it, Watkins has to start. You need to give him the opportunity to lead the line from the start, really. Now that Tuchel's come in, I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. One, there's part of me that thinks that, English coaching, no English manager has ever won the Premier League. Ever. That's an embarrassment. That's an embarrassing fact. And I kind of wonder whether Southgate, I know he got England to 2 finals, essentially. He completely revolutionised the sort of feel around England that had gone very, very negative for years. It's very easy to forget that now because he was there for such a long time. And I sort of feel like it maybe was an opportunity for another English manager to come in and take over and, maybe improve English coaching on the whole. now Tuchel's come in. I think there's two ways of looking at it. He's won a Champions League recently. He clearly knows how to win things in major tournaments. So he's got that going for him. He's a top manager. The only thing is, he's not got the experience of international management, which is very different to club management. And on top of that, he is a character who does tend to fall out with people, falls out with boards wherever he goes. It always seems to end a little bit in tears. So I'd say, whilst I think he's somebody who can win tournaments for England, I also think there's every chance as well that it could very well end in a kind of tears. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. Kev, your thoughts? Do you think this is a long-term appointment for England, or do you think this is, look, we've got you in here to get the most out of this group of players for this next couple of years to hopefully win us a World Cup?
Well, I think with the way Tuchel has been, Tuchel, I don't know whether it's to me, to you, whatever it might be, but the way Tommy's been over the years, if he gets to Christmas, maybe that's a start. Look, I don't really know how to think about this. I keep kind of flip-flopping on it because I look at it in terms of, as I sort of said in our pod chat group earlier, I think of the available candidates, I think he's probably the best available option because obviously he's got experience, which is important. In big games, he's obviously been a winner, which is great. Winning obviously the Bundesliga, won the French League a couple of times, won the Champions League, famously with pretty much taken over from Lampard, wasn't it, in terms of that team? So was it? No, it was part, wasn't it? Part we took over from him, didn't he? Yeah. So obviously that's great, but then I look at it and think, Roberto Di Matteo won the Champions League, and if he'd managed PSG, he probably would have won the French League. And if he'd managed Bayern Munich, I think if any of us managed Bayern Munich, we'd probably at least win it 1 out of 3 seasons. So I don't know. He managed Mainz before that. Obviously, he's got a really good record in terms of his perfectionism, his meticulous nature, really high standards. I was reading about him earlier, saying like he didn't even want players to leave the canteen when other players were eating because he felt like it was rude. And I like that kind of sense of sort of, morals and ethics around how you want your players to be. But I think kind of Frankie touched on this. There's such a dearth of options, really. I like Potter as a manager. I think he did a great job with Brighton. Obviously did a good job before that overseas. Howe's done well with Newcastle. Are they the best options, really, that we've got? They've never really won anything. So I'm all behind Tommy. Let's go for it. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it all end in tears. With a quarterfinal exit somewhere the next tournament.
Yeah, potentially. Few comments. Philly Flyboxing said, "Good evening, Tommy T in charge." Absolutely. What else have we got here? CC said, "Would be brilliant if Southgate went to Man United." Dristar said, "I saw your lineup against us." Obviously a Greece fan, and he mentioned it in the chat earlier, 2-1. Obviously you'll be buzzing, mate. And I really don't get it. It's clear Foden, Palmer, Jude playing together. It's never going to work, especially without a striker to open the channels for them. And we got a super chat from Ken. Thank you very much, mate. Much appreciated. Michelle said Tuchel's only got an 18-month contract, so that would be interesting. Does that take him to or beyond the World Cup?
Not sure.
I don't know.
Sure he gets that far, yeah.
George, we've been in our WhatsApp group, up banging on about it, back and forth. We've had debate on it. What are your thoughts on Southgate moving on, Kazi coming in, Tuchel now the manager? What are your kind of thoughts around it? Because I think you're in the camp of what we're kind of puzzled as to what we want as an England fan base.
Yeah, it's been a funny old day reading this news. I think I might have just shot my bolt on the group chat there, haven't I? Because I've had a good go there for the last half an hour. We've had a really good debate. But I didn't really see this one coming, if I'm being honest with you. Tuchel, I don't know. He's not got that sort of amazing relationship with English football just yet, has he? If it was going to be any German, I would have expected them to maybe have tried to get Klopp before. I know he's gone into a job recently, so I guess that wasn't viable. But this one, I don't know. As you guys all just said before, he's not really one for staying around too long. He's fiery, likes to fall out. You're in a job now where you're under the biggest scrutiny, really, in world football. I think the England manager's job. You're only being a coach about 50% of the time. The rest of the time, you're just dealing with bullshit and scandals and fallouts and players misbehaving and media trying to stitch you up. It's just one of them. I can just see this not working out. I think this is a one and done job for Tuchel. I think one tournament, and I think he'd be like, you know what, I'm on to the next club job. I can't be doing with this. I mean, it's what was I going to say? Sorry. We have to come back. I can't think. I just had a good point there, but it's gone straight out of my mind.
We'll get you back, George.
He's a good coach. I'm not denying he's a good coach. I just think that this might not be the role for him.
Yeah, it's quite possibly. I mean, I guess that 18-month thing kind of points to that. Cece said, "How was someone I'd like to see in the England job? On the fence about Tuchel, as he seems to attract drama. 18-month contract protects both sides. I'm happy with that." Aurelio Gomez says, "Summer 2026, next World Cup, 18 months will see him manage for the World Cup." Bear in the Garden says, "Does 18 months take till the end of qualifying?" Rachel said, "Tuchel is a good tactician and good knockout games and can teach tactics quickly, but I need to see his squad and how they play first before she judges him." And that's the thing, Frankie, because bringing it to a Villa perspective, obviously we've seen Ollie Watkins improve as the seasons have gone on, and he's kind of had a game here, a game there, 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and you're thinking, right, Harry Kane's got a bit of a knock. We've got this game against Greece. Finally, Ollie might get his opportunity to go into a game where he might see some chances. They might play an attacking side, and then he's nowhere to be seen in that team. Will we maybe see Tuchel look to Ollie Watkins to, lead the line potential, get more of an opportunity with Harry Kane there?
I think he's going to have to, because the thing with Harry Kane is that whilst obviously in the last year he's had a fantastic run at Bayern and the number of goals he's scored, he's not getting any younger, is he? He's now his early 30s. He's played a lot of football, and he doesn't seem to like taking breaks. That there's some international breaks where some players will just go, I've picked up a bit of a knock, when in fact they probably just need to get a bit fitter, like Watkins did in the last international break. He wasn't fit, was he? And I think he probably just decided, I need time at Villa, at Bodymore Heath, to just get myself right. And Kane doesn't do that. And so, there's another now year and a half to go until the next World Cup, slightly longer than that. And it's a long old way for Harry Kane to go. And so Watkins still going to be, close to his peak, you would say, by the time the next World Cup comes around. Tommy Tuchel, I don't know what to call him now, is, he, from what I remember, I think he signed Lukaku at Chelsea. I think he did. So
that one went well.
Yeah. But he evidently likes a striker. So, Watkins is, I think the form he's been in for England, the form he's been for Villa has been absolutely incredible. But what he's done for England as well, with the goal against the Netherlands, the assist he got the other day against Finland as well, he's a very, very effective player, and he makes the kind of runs that players like Foden, Palmer, Grealish can all work off. Put him through, he can move around, and players can run off him and all that. So I just think that actually he suits those players a little bit better than Harry Kane does. Harry Kane coming deep, he needs a Saka running behind her, he needs a Anthony Gordon running behind or something. So yeah, I think he's going to have to play Watkins more. I'm going to have to bet him in more and start him more in the next year and a half and get him fully up to speed with that sort of a role. Because, as I say, Harry Kane's not getting any younger, and who knows, he does pick up ankle injuries every now and again. He can be out for periods. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be something that I think it's a big opportunity for Watkins, actually.
Yeah. And then, thinking of the future, George, players like Morgan Rogers, does this 18 months for Tuchel point to the fact that maybe some of these younger players who are coming through might not get utilised, with regards to the short-termism, I guess, that it looks like? Would we see some of these younger players, including Morgan Rogers, coming through?
There's every chance that what you're saying there, Rich, is right, because if Tuchel's coming in on an 18-month deal, and as I said in our group chat earlier, what do you do now as England manager coming into the job? You've got to win the tournament, or you're shit, aren't you? You've failed because the last guy got to the final. So where do you go now? You start building, then you get to a quarter, you get to a last 16. The nation aren't going to take that now, rightly or wrongly. They want to win. That's the appetite, isn't it? They want to win a tournament. So if Tuchel's coming in, he wants the players that are at their peak right at this moment. So you probably find the younger players will get blocked. What you just said there, Frankie, we were saying the same earlier, about Kane's always there, isn't he? And he's not getting, he's a world-class striker up there with the best, best in the world. But we do have to start looking past that now. And, who's the next Kane? We obviously look at Ollie Watkins because he plays for us. Is it him? Is it Solanke? Is it Cole Palmer's going to be a centre forward? There's options there. But I do think he needs to start looking at them. And, we're playing all these Nations League games. Does Kane really have to play in all these games? We know when we've got a big game and a tournament, Kane's your main man, right? Even though he struggled at the last tournament, you are going to use him. But, when we're playing like Finland and teams like that, why not just leave Kane out of a few and try and get a bit of confidence and make, the backup strikers, forwards, feel more at home and more like the main man for a while, rather than just kind of like a decoration?
I totally agree. I mean, Kev, your thoughts on we had a bit of a debate, obviously, while you were playing football in our WhatsApp group about kind of the utilisation of some of these players, the likes of Kane, Walker, Saka even, the established internationals that we know all about. And then it means the likes of Ollie Watkins are only getting 15 minutes here and there. And then they're getting judged on, Ollie Watkins comes on against Greece. He's on for 10 seconds. His first touch to the ball is a chance that he puts over the bar. And everyone's like, oh, well, he should have scored that. It's like, what do you want him to do? He's literally just walked onto the pitch. Give him 5 or 6 games and then say, okay, look, is he good enough for the international side or is he not good enough for the international side? But asking someone to do something within 15 minutes every 6 months is just, and then judging him off that just seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, he's not John Duran, is he? You'd probably get away with it if it was John Duran. By the way, that WhatsApp group chat, I had the absolute pleasure of getting in my car, unlocking my phone, and then selecting on my CarPlay, play WhatsApps, and I don't think the number could fit on the screen, and it was just like the most inane chat. But you know what? When I want to sleep later, I'll put it back on. No, there were some good points, right? The key point coming through is that, like, Kane obviously plays because he's such a good striker and his numbers are so good. And I do understand that point that, if this is another nation like an Mbappe or, it's obviously Ronaldo, maybe he's slightly over the hill now, but he's still playing a lot. These key big players for these big countries still play in most of the internationals, don't they? So, it doesn't surprise me that Kane plays. I think the key thing for me around this is that Kane in tournament football recently, for whatever reason, whether he's burnt out, tired, whatever, has been nowhere near it. And if you've then not blooded these other players enough beforehand, then you lack in that big match experience.
That's the thing, Kev, though. But if they left him out of a few of them, he might get a bit more rest, so he's not bollocks come the end of the season for the tournament.
I know, but then I look at it and think, like, there are other players that played a lot that didn't have the same level of fatigue. But surely this is where maybe Tuchel will be different as a manager. All of us England fans could see that Kane was done. We could see it. So make a change, and that's the thing with Southgate. The biggest issue is that in-game management. I was saying this about Southgate. I'm not trying to say I'm a prophet or anything, but like going back to 2018 World Cup, when you look back on that World Cup semi-final, we went 1-0 up against not Spain, not France, not Brazil, Croatia. Sure, a good Croatia team, and we didn't go over the line. We played an Italy team in the Euros who didn't qualify for the next World Cup, and we went 1-0 up. You know where I'm going with this. And it's an opportunity to sort of change the game when you need to. The other thing is this, though. Is Watkins good enough? Is Tony good enough? Or do we have good enough options to lead the line for a team like England to win a major tournament? But I do actually think with the personnel we've got generally available, there's definitely a better setup, a better system that could get success. Let's not forget, there's been plenty of international teams over the years that have won tournaments that haven't actually been amazing. I'm sure I saw Christos in the chat will be keen to hear about Greece in 2004 and Denmark 92. And even some of the World Cup winning teams in recent years haven't been amazing. That France team won in 2018 wasn't unbelievable.
Portugal.
It's just been at Portugal. Look at all these different tournaments. And I look at it and think we've definitely got enough. Whether it was even a Watkins, Tony, Kane up top, if you play the right kind of bloody setup behind it, and we just haven't. We've definitely got the personnel though.
Yeah, yeah. Just to finish up on this before I just round up a few comments, Frankie, do you see Tuchel as having the kind of courage, I suppose, to make those big decisions, those key decisions in the bigger games? If we take sort of qualification as generally a given, will he have the gumption to make a big call in a quarter final or semi final, or change it at half time, or whatever? Do you think he will be the type of manager to do that?
Yeah, 100%. He's got that kind of bloody mindedness to be a top elite coach. That's what he is. He's having won a Champions League in the not too distant past and won trophies pretty much almost everywhere he's gone. Yeah, I definitely think he would, and I think you'd probably have to look at him as he's a smart tactician, and if you compare him to Southgate, you'd probably say he's more likely to make the correct call at the right moment than Southgate probably was. There's probably a few games you can look back on and think, the Italy final, for instance, at Euro 2020, where it felt like Southgate let the game drift a bit too long, and he did that a few times. So Tuchel, I think, would have that kind of bloody mindedness and to not be afraid to ruffle feathers either. But, it's a two-way street. He's not afraid to probably ruffle feathers on the pitch, but, as we've seen at previous clubs as well, he's ruffled feathers with the board. He does tend to be a bit of a spiky character. So I think that's the thing to look out for. He's got all the ability to win things at club level. International management is different. It's different. It's just a different quality, really, and a different kind of approach, I suppose, is how to put it. And it's just whether the way he falls out of clubs generally, whether that translates to does he fall out of the FA or whoever, but a time will tell, really. But look, he's a winner. He's one thing. He's won top trophies, and I think England probably have to look at it and think this is a manager who could win something for the national team.
Yeah. Well, remains to be seen. We will see, but it's interesting appointment nonetheless. Stephen said taking an 18-month contract shows he's confident of winning something quick. Gary with his perfect one-liners. Kane isn't able. And after telling me to turn my mic up, Adamski's now told me to turn my mic down. I hope it's all right at the moment.
Rich, at least you got electricity.
Yeah, I know, mate. You've survived after your power cut.
Total blackout for 10 minutes, yeah.
Kev said, I find Golden Boy Foden an enigma. Always gets picked, but rarely performs for England. We've definitely noticed that
is
as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just doesn't seem to kind of get on the ball. Well, you kind of see him getting on the ball, maybe not in the positions where he can hurt anyone. Maybe he hides a little bit.
It's him or Bellingham. Bellingham does all the stuff Foden wants to do. Yeah,
but I just think Foden, when he gets it, he just passes it backwards or sideways. I don't see him having a shot too much. I don't see him trying to play any players in. He's very safe. I don't know if you boys noticed that with him as well.
Had one good game in the Euros, didn't he? Where he come alive. I can't think which one it was, and I thought, here we go. He finally feels part of it. But that was kind of it, really, and there's been nothing since either.
Can I say something quite controversial? I don't really give a shit. I'm so done with England now in recent years, and it's so bad, it's so negative, and I'm really patriotic, and I think it's really important, and and I'm a big believer in that. But I got more buzzing when Ireland have won games over the years. I celebrated Greece winning the Euros in 2004 when I was in Zante more than I've celebrated hardly anything, because I just think I've just got this so used to this abject failure after abject failure, and you get kind of close to it, and I just want to see what happens. I don't watch international friendlies. Yeah, maybe that's bad. If England are playing cricket, if there's a big international rugby match, if there's an English-British tennis player playing, I'm all about it. Really patriotic. Raducanu, Murray, whatever, let's go. But I know he's Scottish, right? But English football team over the year, I can't explain what it is, but I'm not saying you're all boring me, by the way, but I just find
that's why you got the power cut.
Yeah, I did it myself. I was in the background with scissors on the wire. Look, I know Villa are very much the type of sort of like same sort of like toxic, substance for us that we keep getting burnt by. It's the hope that kills you and all that, but. I don't know what it is with England. I look at it and think, is it the manager the reason why the likes, as you say, of Foden isn't performing? And are some of these big name egos. I think Bellingham tries too hard. I think he tries to make it all about him a bit too much. Is it the manager? Is it the players not stepping up? I don't know what it is, but my love for it has certainly dwindled quite a bit over the years.
Is it just hard to win though? Like it's not easy to just say, "Oh, we got a good team, we should win it." You know,
we always win. We win every qualifying game, seemingly.
Yeah.
You know what it is for me, and this is how I'll summarise it. Right, I don't look at many England big games in the recent years, and I clearly Southgate had a woeful record against top ranked nations, and that's absolutely out there. It was it like less than 20% of wins? I don't look at it and see a scenario where when we came off the pitch in World Cup '98 and Campbell had that header that was disallowed, and obviously Beckham was sent off. I think we all felt a sense of pride about how hard we tried and we pushed it and we'd had opportunities. You know, World Cup '90, when obviously it was so close on penalties, for those that remember it, you know, those of us old enough that do. You know, '96 and Gaza stretching for that cross, and Stefan won't say his surname, obviously scored for Germany. There was just so many...
Absolute.
Absolute, yeah. But I didn't come out of any of those tournaments thinking, you know, we could have done more. I felt like we put everything in. You know, we got everything out of our system. You know, the tank was empty. And in recent tournaments, I've just thought, wow, we beat Panama. But, you know, wow, then we beat Ukraine and Colombia, whoever it was. I mean, great, you've got to win the games. But in the main games, I don't think I've come off any of those finals or semi-finals and thought, bad luck, England.
Football's a bit more clinical now, though, Kev, isn't it? Like, back then, all the things you've just mentioned, it was all blood and thunder, wasn't it? And Paul Ince with a bandage around his head and Terry Butcher. That was old school England, wasn't it? Get in there and fight. But football now, ain't like that, is it? I mean, look at Villa. The emotion in the style of play is gone, isn't it? It's all about control now, whereas before it was more of an emotional game, and everyone's, you know, come on England, 3 lines and all that.
But I still feel like we played our wild cards. I feel like we, you know, with Platt in '90, with obviously Owen in '98, we played even Rooney in 2004. That tournament we lost on penalties, but that tournament again, I was like, God, it was so close. You know, we didn't have a great start in that tournament, then we came back really strong. And I look at it now and I just think whether it's the players not taking opportunities, that the manager's not being brave enough. But it's just time and time and time again. I just think we're just missing opportunities. And you look at sport, you've got to take your opportunities. I know it's not easy to win these tournaments, but I also think we're not in an era of amazing international teams. And just like Villa, you know, look at it right now. If you want to get in the top 4, I don't think the Premier League is as littered with amazing teams. You need someone who can get you over the line and get the players to be playing in a way which takes these opportunities. I mean, Unai would obviously do it because he's an absolute magician with what he did with us when Gerrard left us. But yeah, I'd love to, I just one more final point. I'd love to get back my passion for England like I had, you know, 10, 15 years ago. I'm waiting for maybe Tommy can do it for me.
I think Simon Jordan mentioned this on TalkSport, and there's a way to lose that gives you that sense of pride, that gives you that sense of you've left it all on the pitch. And I think the last 3 or 4 tournaments, England have felt like they've left too much on the pitch, and they haven't, whether it's a decision that the manager could have made or whether it's a player taking an opportunity, they just haven't done that. And even if they've, like you could have said, they conserved a bit of energy in some of the group games to be able to put it in the final couple of games, they haven't done that. And like I say, there's only so many times you as fans you can go to that well of emotion and kind of give it the same. 96, 90, 2004, 98, like you say, it was almost glorious failure, but there's a way to lose and have that credibility, whereas it's felt like we've had the players, we've had the team, we've built, whether it's the press or whether it's us as fans, have built it up so much that we've got all these world-class players. If we've got these world-class players, they should be able to perform on the biggest stage, and or at least put 100%, 110% effort, because they're doing everything that every football fan would dream of doing, would give everything to be in that position. So make it count. And like, yeah, it's definitely felt like they haven't done that. Hopefully Tuchel can tap into some of that and hopefully, you know, get us over the line. But that's enough of England chat. I know we tried to sprinkle a bit of Villa chat in there, but yeah, let's concentrate on football being back, because this weekend we finally got football back. Before we get into it, make sure you smash that like button, everyone. Hit that subscribe button. Nearly 200 in the chat. We're on X. We're on YouTube as well. Make sure you're following us on X and retweeting and all that jazz. But yeah, let's I guess move into Villa, because Frankie, we've had news of Jaden Philogene coming back from under-21 duty with a bit of an injury. We already had, dare I say it, a little bit of an injury crisis before the international break. How are you feeling about this injury situation at the moment? Because we haven't really heard much news about McGinn, Konsa, obviously Kamara and Mings on the road back. Multiple other players, Ramsey as well, who's been injured. Is he on his way back? Like, how are we going to be set for this big batch of games that we've got coming up?
One day I dare to dream of seeing Aston Villa's strongest 11 play ever. It's just unbelievable. It's been genuinely since Buendia's ACL the day before last season started. It's just been an endless run of constant injuries that Unai Emery, the genius that he is having to work around and figure out how to deal with it. And, my biggest hope coming into this season was that last season, there were so many clubs that had major injury crises. Villa, Newcastle, Man United, I think Spurs had a spell of it. There were a lot of clubs who had real injury problems. And I was hoping this season would be, maybe last season there were reasons for it. Maybe the World Cup the year before led to a disruption of how their bodies were working. All these sports sciences. But coming into this season, I thought, well, hopefully this year it's going to be calmer. And Villa, again, it's just these. It's not really ACLs. We've gone from ACL FC to hamstring FC. Just these little tweaks, and Ramsey's groin injury, Philogene's had a couple. It's frustrating because you just feel like, it's going to be hard to get top four again this season if we're just going to continually get these injuries. And I'm looking at our fixtures from October to the end of this calendar year, and we average a game maybe once every 3 days. It's absolutely insane how many games we're playing, which lends itself to the other argument of, do footballers play too much football? And given the intensity of the highest level of football now, there's a good case to say they do, and probably is a big part of why these injury crises are happening. Look at Newcastle last season when they were in the Champions League. So with Villa, it is a worry, these injuries, knowing that we have so many games to the end of the year, and you think there's a part of my brain that thinks, am I just going to have to accept there might be a slight dip in form, and it might just take us a little while, maybe in January, to get back at it and then have runs at the end of the season. Or, who knows, maybe these injuries aren't actually too long-term. Konsa's coming back soon. Maybe Philogene's not out too long. Maybe Ramsey's actually okay. And if we can just keep these players fit enough until the end of this calendar year, hopefully Villa can sort of continue to go on a bit of a charge and stay competitive in at least that top 6 area, and in the Champions League as well, of course. So, yeah, it is a worry, though.
It's hampering the options, I guess, that Emery's gets from the bench. I mean, we've said it so many times on this pod this season that the ability to bring on the likes of Duran, Maatsen, Barkley, whoever else it is, even with the injuries, Ramsey as well, he's brought him on, and they've been the game changers. They've been the ones who've won the game for us. Whereas, last season towards the back end, it was literally just changing Douglas Luiz for Yuri Tielemans and Moussa Diaby for Leon Bailey. If we were lucky, that was it. And it's the ability to have the options on the bench to be able to have these game changers that's really going to impact us moving forward. I mean, in the comments, Gary said Philogene can't get a break. At least there's no ACLs though. Heredio said McGinn. Kevin said Onana should be back on Saturday. So that's another one who we're thinking of getting back in, hopefully. James said Illing Jr. and Enzo wouldn't have got much game time, because I think someone set a stain said wish we'd kept Illing Jr. and Enzo. George, what do you think with regards to that, in terms of keeping one or two players that we've sent out on loan? There's always a difficult balance, but also with the fact of, I guess the lack of information. I haven't seen any pictures of McGinn in training. many of these players potentially coming back from injury in training, and Leon Bailey's obviously he's pretty much been playing on one leg for the last 6 months. I mean, it is pretty concerning, isn't it?
Yeah, very concerning and just frustrating, really, for fans as well. Emery's built this, what we think is a great squad over the last sort of couple of years, but we just never get to see it, do we? I'm desperate to just see what it would look like, a starting 11 and a full bench of what we've got. And then we can say, Jesus, this is a good side, or are we over-egging them? Are we under-egging them? But they're never there, are they? You keep buying a couple and then you think, oh, we've cracked it now. But then, one gets injured, one comes back, another one gets injured, another one comes back. And it's just, we don't seem to be getting the breaks. So it's tough for us. Normally, when you don't hear the news, it's normally bad, isn't it? It's like, if a player's on their way back, we usually hear about it. It's when they're not, you don't hear no noise, do you? The Konza was a hamstring, which is normally sort of it was a hamstring when it Konza.
I think it was.
Yeah, they said the first initial report from Matt Law, I think, in the Times was like, it's not as serious as first thought, 1 to 2 weeks. So there's a chance he could be back in. Ramsey's probably 3 weeks-ish with a groin.
Yeah.
Bailey could be okay after a bit of rest with fatigue, but McGinn's been a complete silence, that one. Onana was probably close to being fit the last game, so I think Kevin might be right. So I mean, even if 2 or 3 of those players come back in for these next couple of games, and then maybe 2 or 3 come back, but as Frankie said, it's if we get another couple of injuries in these next couple of games, that you're just back to square one.
It's just it seems all a bit too early in the season for this to be happening.
Yeah.
It feels like we're being robbed of getting any sort of rhythm. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've started the season pretty well, haven't we? I don't think we've been scintillating by any means, but results-wise, we've been all right. But how can you build up these relationships on the pitch and and get that continuity that we had last year, early doors anyway, when you're losing players every week? So, it's just a bit of a tough spot, isn't it? Luckily, Emery's tended to buy players that are quite versatile, and we're seeing people switching positions and that, aren't we? Konza one week it's centre back, and he's going to be centre back, and that's the future. The following week he's back out to right back again. Philogene finally gets a little a break in the side, has a great game against Munich, starts again against Man United. Now he's out again. It's just what's going on?
Yeah, Kev, do you see Emery dipping into that January transfer market? I've seen some of the rumours, Graham Bailey, the usual one with the speculation about various players across Europe that we're interested in. But yeah, do you see Unai dipping into the transfer market?
Yeah, I reckon. Benny McCarthy, maybe Juninho could be coming in. Finally get one of those two. Yeah, it's this whole situation is. I mean, I think the lads have said it. It's so frustrating. Obviously, as you know, and the guys on this channel who watch it know, I am the eternal optimist. I think Emery is the second coming of every deity in the world, and we're fantastic, and we're going to win the lot. We're going to win the lot. In fact, if anyone was at West Ham away on the opening day of the season and saw that madman sprinting to get back to his car, shouting, "We're going to win the lot," that was me. Because we started really well, but then since then, I don't think we've played particularly great. And it's probably because we've got a better squad of players and better quality that we're able to still get quite a lot of results over the line. But I'm actually a little bit more worried than my usual optimistic self is, because I do think it's a bit of a hangover from having a lot of players going away with international duty, not having much of a break. You've only got to see how well the likes of a Haaland and a Salah have started the season when they basically had the summer off to know that it makes a massive difference. I did a bit of a jokey tweet about a month ago when Rodri was basically moaning about too many games and boohoo, and I was sort of semi-joking. Michael actually in the chat sort of reprimanded me and sent me a really good message. But genuinely, I get it. There's too many. And what happened a few days later, he obviously does his ACL. And then since then, there's been a succession of Villa injuries. And I was wondering if this keeps happening. I think, was it last season, Newcastle, Man United both had sort of really bad injuries records. Do you think they'll have to start increasing the squad sizes? Do you think that might be a thing they might have to do if teams are going to struggle so much?
usually it takes Man United to complain about it, and then they'll change the rules. So probably we'll wait till that happens.
Yeah,
but you could be right.
Yeah, because obviously we are blessed now to have a really great squad, but it almost feels a bit like, you know, a couple. McGinn's out and Konza's out, but don't worry, you know, Mings is back, Kamara's back, so maybe you're just going to have to keep shuffling the pack. I can see, subject to obviously the financial restrictions, I do still think we've got a clear weakness at right back. I think Cash is fine. I think Cash is our best option, but I still think we're a little bit restricted there as an option. And I think we might also not be thinking about this now, but it depends what state the squad's in when we get to January. You know, fighting on a few fronts. If we're still in the Carabao Cup, who knows? So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen. But then with Villa, I was expecting for the last month of the window something to happen, and it didn't. So I wouldn't also be surprised to see absolutely nothing happen.
Yeah. Gary said we need a right back. That's all. Alex said he agrees with you, Kev. Our best performance was that loss versus Arsenal. People, I think, mentioned about Philogene Bidace and James saying he'll be okay. Bear in the Garden is very, very, very positive. The quadruple is still possible.
It's 5, isn't it? Because we're still in the under-21s one as well. So
yeah. I think we've been playing in second gear, says Kev. Well, hopefully, and we can push on. What about you, Frankie? Do you see changes made in, or not changes? Do you see players coming in January potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it all comes down to PSR, doesn't it? Really, and I think that's probably why the Hertroider deal didn't go ahead in the end. It's just what we can move around and what we can work within UEFA's rules as well as the Premier League rules. If we can get a player who could come in at centre back, maybe a hybrid right back, and provide another option there. If we can get that over the line within financial restrictions, then I think that probably is something that would be done, because just looking at Villa's defence, like I've looked at the squad multiple times now, and every time I look at that defence area, I think we're just one injury away from an absolute crisis there. You know, we're waiting on Mings to come back and potentially be a left centre back. If Torres was injured right now, I'm like, well, maybe Carlos will go left back, then Konsa goes centre back, right centre back, and then you'd have, who's the backup then? Bogart. And then I guess when Kamara comes back, I have a feeling Kamara, he does have a history of playing at centre back, and I have a feeling his primary role will be CDM, but I do think he'll play as a centre back as well. But I think that's something to watch out for, at least in the coming month or two. But yeah, I think if the money's there and available, I wouldn't be surprised if we did a sort of, you know, last January we signed Morgan Rogers, we signed Kostas Nedeljkovic, 2 very young players, 7 million quid, 8 million quid for the two of them. And I think it might be something like that. If we could find a player who's high potential, you know, young and affordable and has a high upside or high resale value, that's a player I could see Monchi and Unai Emery potentially going for in January, yeah.
I really like that James Justin at Leicester. I thought we should have gone for him ages ago. I know he was injured. He had a couple of bad injuries, but I wouldn't mind him.
Believe it or not, I was actually at the Arsenal game where he scored that volley.
What a goal.
It was a goal that was.
One of the best goals I've ever seen in a stadium. I literally just gasped. Yeah. I was sat in the Arsenal end. I was about to jump up and applaud and was like, oh, no, sorry. I'll got to pretend I'm a Cockney for the day, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I really think he's a top player, but maybe his value have gone up a bit now. He's back in the Premier League, and might be a bit too much for us. Scotty says we need a pacey winger that's better than Bailey and Jayden. We've got no player breaking the flanks behind sit-back teams. We're getting a bit predictable. And Stephen said, think the pitches are to blame for a little for the injuries. Too soft, but they look nice. And no, I'm not gonna mention it. We'll move on. We will move on. I know Gary's said Grealish on purpose, so yeah, we're not gonna talk about that one. Just before we move on to our next little topic, I want to shout out our show supporters, Football Prizes, and they have a great prize on at the moment for a signed and framed Aston Villa shirt signed by Ollie Watkins. And they also have instant prizes available, including a Ross Barkley signed shirt as well. Now, for this one, there's only 175 tickets available. They've already sold nearly 100 of these tickets, and there's just under 2 days left on the prize. And for the month of October, for any of the competitions that Football Prizes are running, 20% of all the net proceeds this month from the Aston Villa competitions will be donated to Young at Heart. They're a local registered charity founded in 1982, offering help and support to families of babies and children diagnosed with heart defects. So when you purchase your ticket, 20% of those proceeds will go to that fantastic charity, and you get the opportunity to win a fantastic prize. So go to footballprizes.co.uk and search for the Aston Villa prize, which, as I said, is a signed and framed Ollie Watkins shirt. So, Frankie, we were talking before the show, and we've gone on about the injuries, but it's so important with the squad that we have, looking at these next batch of games. So I'm just going to share the screen because it's such a huge batch of games that we've got coming up before this next international break. Fulham away, Bologna in the Champions League at home, Bournemouth at home, Crystal Palace in the EFL Cup at home. Then this huge week of Tottenham away, Bruges away, and Liverpool away. So 7 games in just over 4 weeks. Absolutely crazy stuff, but big games. I mean, it's so exciting to think about the Champions League and these games in the Premier League. But what are your hopes? What are you hoping for? What are you expecting over these next few weeks?
I'm kind of hoping us to keep on with the solid. I know we've not been performing brilliantly on the eye at the start of the season, but I partly wonder if that might be Villa pacing themselves this season. If you think of Man City, what Guardiola is so brilliant at doing is at the start of seasons, Man City sometimes look a bit rocky, sometimes have a bit of a weird result here and there. You think, what are these guys all about? They're overrated, and then get to December and suddenly they win 30 games in a row. It tends to be a bit of a formula they follow, and I'm wondering if Villa are, maybe not playing full pelt as the season starts, and then just gradually picking up momentum as the season goes on. Maybe that's something I'm thinking of, but I kind of hope that Villa can just solidly see themselves through what is a very intense spell of games. The Palace Carabao Cup game. Now, I am desperate to see Aston Villa win a trophy. I was very lucky to be there in Wembley in '94. Now Bayern Munich's probably joint my favourite game ever that I've been to, but that's up there as well. To see Villa actually win a trophy. So I take all the trophies in very seriously, but just looking at all the different competitions we're in, I do look at that Palace game and think it's one where we might just have to start, players who are a bit more fringe, the Nedeljkovic, the Bogarts, players like that. Maybe a Mings is coming back from injury, Kamara. And looking at the games that we can potentially win, I think we can win at Fulham away, even though they're playing very, very well this season. So that's going to be a really tough day. But it is one of those sorts of games where Villa do tend to turn up. We've done quite well away from home. We seem to do well in London as well at the moment for some reason. And then Bournemouth at home, we have to target that as a potential pickup. But I think it's going to get harder as well then, isn't it, when you've got bloody Tottenham away, Bruges away, and then Liverpool. That's the week where you look at and you think, oof. But, Emery always surprises us. This Villa team always surprises us. They're so resilient. They constantly pull out results when you just don't expect it. So that's it. I think we look at that and there's probably games to predict and say, we'll win that or we might lose there. And in fact, it will be completely the other way around and pick up a big win somewhere we're just not expecting. So, I'm excited. But, slight trepidation with just thinking, right, how is this squad with the injuries going to cope with it? But Emery always finds a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Rachel said, tough games. We need to try and keep clean sheets. Cece said, I'm expecting to see improvements in our play on set pieces, attacking down the flanks. We have to up our intensity and forward playing as we are really poor when it drops. And Kevin said, start slow, end fast. You're right, Frankie. I think I also talked about that last week and thought maybe that is something that we could be looking at. Alex said he agrees with Rachel. Will be rare we don't score, so points will be amassed if we keep the clean sheets. Hopefully Onai uses more squad players, Costa, etc. George, with regards to Bologna at home, Bruges away, and the kind of relentlessness of the Premier League games, do you see him, dare I say it, if we pick up a good result against Bologna, maybe resting a few for the Champions League game against Bruges? I can't believe I'm saying that, but I guess that win against Bayern Munich, has that maybe given him a little bit of breathing space to hopefully, well, not hopefully, but maybe rest a few in between those big games against Tottenham and Liverpool?
Yeah, amazing to even think it. But yeah, quite possibly, mate. I mean, 6 points so far, the perfect start. Sort of, better than any of us could have dreamed of. I hear they're saying 10, 11 pretty much will get you into the the knockout phase or whatever in that middle bracket.
Yeah, that's
so yeah, quite possibly, mate. I mean, I don't know. None of these games are obviously a given in the Champions League, but obviously everyone will look at the Celtic at home game and think probably should be winning that on paper. That would take you up to 9. Then, what have we got? Another 5, 6 games there just to get a couple of draws, maybe. I know you want to do as well as possible, but yeah, it's horses for courses there. When you're looking at Liverpool away, Spurs away, with Bruges in the middle, something will have to give in some of them games because you're not just going to go same team in all 3 of them. I can't see anyway. So yeah, mate, yeah, probably will. And as Frankie said there, the Palace game will probably be a lot of fringe players playing that one. A game we'd love to win, but there's a lot of fixtures there, lads, isn't there?
Loads. Academy AVFC said that, he's picked up a lot on Unai's press conference, and he's almost intimated that he will use the first couple of rounds of the Carabao Cup as a breeding ground for the younger players and experience for them, and that'll be great for them. Home game against Crystal Palace, the likes of Patterson, Borland, Broggio, one or two others to get some minutes. Caden Young, who did well in the other game, so I'd be excited to see what they can do. But Kev, I mean, we've talked about having a pretty good start. More than a pretty good start to the season, a very good start to the season, but factoring in the opposition that we're playing against. So coming up against Tottenham and Liverpool in consecutive Premier League games away from home, those are the games that really matter with us wanting to finish in that top 4. We've got to pick up results against those teams. So he will have to do some sort of squad juggling. I can't see any other way around it because we have to pick up the results against the likes of Tottenham and Liverpool.
Yeah, these are the teams that are going to be there or thereabouts in those top 4 positions. Liverpool probably like to finish a little bit higher based on pedigree. And I think what Frankie said, I absolutely agree. I think, you did actually touch on that point a week ago about are we pacing ourselves, and it's hell of a skill to be able to tell players only play at 83.6% today because we're going to need that extra 9% in that week and 6% that week, whatever. But he absolutely gets results out of this team when we do not expect it. I mean, if you look at last season when we got the Arsenal result, what the hell? And obviously doing Man City and then Arsenal straight afterwards. So many times when we've done it, we've pulled wins out. And actually, we're better away from home. We've got a pretty unblemished record other than drawing at Ipswich. And that's, maybe not the worst result, in the world because I think they're all right at home. So yeah, I think that those games will be key. If you look at the rest of the October fixtures, certainly that you'd say they had games we'd be more fancied in. Fulham won't be easy, but we're really good away from home. Bologna at home, Bournemouth at home, and then Palace obviously in the League Cup. Now, let's not forget Palace are bottom 3 in the Premier League. So they may well rotate themselves. So it is an opportunity. Frankie, that trophy we talk about, we desperately want to win. And I've seen us win the playoffs, and that's about it. I've seen us lose an FA Cup final and a League Cup final. I wasn't there to watch John McGinn lift the Orange Trophy in Spain a couple of years back for that one-off pre-season game. So I'd love it, but I just think if we get past Palace with both two sort of rotated teams, the thing about that as well is this. We're a Villa team now that are going places. If you're a fringe player, you got to perform in those opportunities you get. Yeah. You want to knock on the door and get a contract, get more opportunities, and do what the likes of some of the other obviously fringe players have done. You got to perform, and then obviously we're into November, and November is, God, I mean some of those fixtures absolutely, Spurs away, Bruges away, Liverpool at home. We've got Palace in
Liverpool away.
Liverpool away. Sorry, yeah. Palace at home, and then we've got Juve. So that is. I mean, the thing is with Villa now and the kind of competitions that we're in, you could almost probably pick any month of the season and say mouthwatering tie. But I think it will be a mark of the kind of team that we are when we get to Christmas this year to see whether we are actually still looking like confidently in that top 4 hunt for the Premier League and confidently, still in the latter stages of the Champions League. By the way, George, you reckon that 10, 11 points? I really fancy us to finish top 8. Now we've won the first 2 games.
What do you reckon you'd need to get 8 to get in the top 8?
14, 15 maybe.
I think they predicted 16 would be like a 70-something% chance of getting in that top 8. So what's that? 5 wins in the draw.
But you never know.
There's no easy games, right? There's no easy games. We know that, and we saw that last season against Legia Warsaw and definitely Olympiacos. We're a little bit more worldly wise now, and of course, young boys won't be the standard of a lot of teams will play. But you'd fancy us against Bruges. You'd fancy us against anybody at home. And I know Juve are a good team. You'd fancy us against Celtic. And I think we could get a win against, one of the other away games. We've got, Monaco, whatever. I think we could get a win.
Well, we've got Bologna next week. So if we beat them, that's 9 points from 9.
Yeah.
Any chance we get a bit of a bloody nose in that game after that's
the realist pessimist.
George, I hope not. I'm not wishing that on us. Just you've got to think about these things.
Yeah. That would be classic Villa, wouldn't it? Let's win 15 home games in a row. We bookend it with victories over Manchester City in the most complete performance ever against the Pep Guardiola team. Period. We beat Arsenal, the pretenders, the next match, and then we nearly lose to Sheffield United at home the next game. Yeah. So it would be very Villa-esque. But I like to think Unai has got that out of our system now, that we no longer are, Villa will always let you down. Actually, more often than not, Villa will always please you and actually make you proud, more often than not.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's hope so. I'll get a couple of predictions off you boys in a second for this batch of games. But a few comments coming in. I don't think Steve 24/7 was happy about us sacrificing the Carabao Cup. Gary as well. We can't sacrifice the Carabao Cup. It's our only chance of silverware. James said, I think Bayern was a one-off. Don't think the other games will be as intense. And Michelle said, try and finish in the top 8 so not to get the 2 extra games plus good money for each win. And hopefully, Alex said, hopefully by using more of the squad, we will recover from the big games in Europe. Pity the Man U game was right after Bayern. We would stuff them 5-0 otherwise. Maybe. I don't know. With Man United, there's just something about Man United. Yes.
We can hold up on one hand how many times we've beaten them in about 30 years. So that's a bit brave saying that.
Yeah. Kevin said, thing with the Carabao Cup is we can play Mings, McGinn, Kamara, Buendia, Philogene or Bailey, recovering first-team players, so it's not so much a reserve side. Yeah, definitely. Engine 9 says, yeah, exactly. Last season, 15 home wins in a row. This season, 15 away games unbeaten. Yeah, that could well be the case. Idristas said, I think we can rotate a couple of players against Bruges, but not a lot. We need to go for the win and place ourselves as high in the table. And what else have we got? CC on a plus. All top 8 teams in the Prem will be facing similar pressures to perform week in and week out, and I think we're starting to be hard to beat. Yeah, definitely. PJJ said we'll probably lose to Leipzig and Monaco.
Them 2 games are just a bit dodgy, aren't they? You couldn't say we would lose for them, could you?
No. And Sai, good evening. Just nipping in and say hi. I'll probably watch tomorrow as in bed reading. I've missed a load. Rogers played an hour. Yeah, early unscathed. God, hope Pau and Costa have 2. Fingers crossed we don't want any more injuries.
Please.
Yes. And despite the scoreline, Bologna really pushed Liverpool, so they aren't a pushover. 100%. 100%. So, Frankie, you first, mate. Premier League first. So, Fulham, Bournemouth, Tottenham, Liverpool, all before the next bloody international break. So 4 Premier League games there. What are you saying in terms of points haul?
I'm gonna. I think Bournemouth we get the 3 points. I'm gonna say we just turn up at Fulham and do it. Like I said, they're in good form, but I just think back on the game last season And actually, it was pretty much the only game I missed last season, Fulham away, that we won. And it was literally during that game I got engaged. I was away in Barcelona, and as I came back to propose to my partner, she said to me, "Have you seen Ollie Watkins has just scored again?" I was like, "This is the perfect sign. This is brilliant. I'm going to have to do it now." Perfect. So, I've got good feelings about that game. So I'm going to take those good feelings and say I'm going to continue this weekend. We beat Fulham and Bournemouth, and then I think maybe like a 2-2 draw at Tottenham, and I think Liverpool away might just be a bridge too far. I think they look really quality at the moment. But look, this Villa team, Unai Emery sets up so well against these top, the top sides like we did against Arsenal, Bayern Munich. And who's to say he doesn't do the same again at Liverpool away? Nottingham Forest did it recently and got that 1-0 win through Hudson-Odoi. So, yeah, I'm going to say 2 wins in there. Fulham, Bournemouth, and then who knows what happens. It's a bit of a gamble there.
Yes. 7 points from 4 games isn't bad. And then the Champions League, Bologna, Bruges, and then the EFL Cup. What are your thoughts on those 3?
Yeah, like I say, I think the Carabao Cup, take what we can get really with whoever. You balance the squad basically. We just have to with the volume of games we've got. Bologna, I think what you mentioned earlier about a potential bloody nose. It's one of them games where there was so much drama and emotion behind the Bayern game. It's one of them where you could imagine the stadium and the players not quite being at the same level. When we play Bologna, the excitement's not quite at it. And it could be something that catches us a little bit cold because Bologna, as you say, they push Liverpool a long way. So, you play European teams, they've always got a style that you might not be prepared for. So it could be tougher than it looks on paper. But I'll say we get the job done, but it'll be a tough game. And then Bruges away, I think we have to look at that as well. But we can go and get 3 points in for sure. I think we're definitely most likely a better side than Bruges. But as I say, Europe's a funny old place and weird things happen when you play out there against teams you think you should beat. As we found in the Conference League last season, sometimes you just get a bloody nose when you least expect it. But no, I'm very confident with what Villa can do in Europe this season. I think we can go quite a distance in the Champions League this year. I'm daring to believe.
Good man. It's exciting times. It absolutely is. And I think that win against Bayern Munich has just sent everyone into, and the manager that we've got, everyone knows how good he is in Europe. So I guess, we can certainly go pretty far. I also think some of the teams in the Champions League, whisper it, I think some of the Conference League teams are actually better than some of the teams in. Yeah. There is a really high standard in the Champions League. Don't get me wrong, but Lille beat Real Madrid. We've beat Bayern Munich, and we both were Conference League size last season.
They were really good, Lille, last season when we played them. I thought one of our toughest games of the season. That was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Did you see what Chelsea have got in the Conference League this year? And it's a piece of piss. So we picked a tough year to qualify for that.
We did. Engine number 9 says win, 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 win. So he's very confident. PJJ 8 or 9 points. And as usual, where's Michael? Says 1 game at a time. Kev, I'm sure you will agree with Michael, as you always agree with everything. But what are you predicting for Premier League, Champions League and Carabao?
I've had a little word with myself, being a negative Nigel, right? So, look, one thing I will say is obviously we are worried about these teams and the pedigree of these teams we're playing, but they'll be worried about us as well. And if you look at some of those teams we're talking about, Bologna have only won once in Serie A this season. So, yeah, they play pretty well against Liverpool, but they're not in great form, near the bottom of the league. Liverpool's run of fixtures coming up before they play us. They've got Chelsea, then Leipzig, then they've got Arsenal away, Brighton in the League Cup, Brighton in the league at home. Then they've got Bayer Leverkusen, then they've got us. That is a tricky run of fixtures. They might get a couple of bloody noses themselves, and maybe they're not riding high at the top of the league. So there is going to be some difficulties, and we saw Spurs the other day, 2-0 up, absolutely coasting. It's just what we do, mate. It's just what we do. Yeah. Struth, all of a sudden. You knew where that was, didn't you, when I did that? Yeah. And obviously they lost 3-2. They lost 3-2. So it's not only Villa that are having a couple of disappointing performances, and obviously Liverpool lost to Forest, didn't they, as well? So My prediction for those games is I actually fancy us to beat Fulham because we're good away. And I think we've had a couple of pretty meh performances in the league with Ipswich and Man United. And I think Unai will be cracking the whip, so to speak, to get a performance out of them. I think we'll beat Bournemouth at home. Bournemouth away, different proposition, by the way. Really, when they're on form, I think they could beat anybody at their stadium. And then I fancy us to probably get a draw in both those games. So I'm going to say 8 points from those. I think we'll get a draw at home to Bologna because I think it's inevitable something crazy will happen, and I think we'll beat Bruges. And I think we'll beat Palace on pens at Villa Park. Ben Broggio sticking one in the top corner to finish it off.
Fantastic. That sounds good to me. Who have we got in the chat? PJJ says, unprepared and Unai don't belong together. Gary said Bologna aren't great this season, so definitely what you said as well, Kev. Kevin says Villa 2, Bologna 1, so getting his score prediction in early. Michael, I have full confidence in the team, but when we played Ipswich, we were looking at the next game. Yeah. Aaron said, can't wait to see Villa against Bologna at Villa Park under the lights next week. And Gary, I'll say it again, we have the better manager. That's something we definitely know we have. And James said he doesn't think that the Ipswich game happens again. And Rachel said that Ipswich was more individual mistakes rather than distraction or tactical errors. Setterstein thinks we'll beat Liverpool as well. Carl is worried about Adama Traore. I mean, he's got the pace, but he hasn't got the finishing, has he, really? George, your thoughts on the upcoming 7 games? Go on, Kev.
Just before we go to George, can I just say how incredibly disappointed I am in Gary in the chat? Because he hasn't done a single joke about Spaghetti Junction and Bologna, and I know he's got one in there somewhere. So
I'm sure he talks about meatball playing.
Oh yeah,
I'm
I'm waiting for a spaghetti bolognese joke somewhere, so I'll let him work that one out. Sorry, I've just been literally sitting here when you started talking about Bologna, thinking, come on, Gary, don't let us down.
And now you've set him off.
Yeah.
Right, George, your thoughts? 7 games, 4 Premier League, 2 Champions League, 1 EFL Cup.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's easy to look at them fixtures with trepidation. But to be fair, Unai doesn't really, touch wood, he doesn't really go on losing streaks, does he?
No.
I don't remember us losing any more than 2 in a row since he's been in charge. So that should fill us with confidence. I think we could beat. I think Fulham game's tough Saturday. I think we might be running into them at the wrong time. But to be fair, I said this last season, and we went and ground one out at Fulham. It was a really, really good performance. But I think it might be a draw. I think we're looking at a 2-2 on Saturday. I think we can win the Bournemouth one at home, as you guys both said. Bologna, draw. We're either gonna. I think you said it, Kev. I think we're either gonna beat Bologna, draw to Bruges, or beat Bruges, draw to Bologna. So go either way there, the same amount of points. The Palace game really depends on what team we put out. All I will say, though, is that any time we've ever put out a fringe team, we don't get through. I couldn't tell you one single time where we've gone through with an understrength team. So make of that what you will. And apparently, I've heard that Glasner saying that they're trying to win a trophy this year. So I'd imagine Palace will be going for it. But we'll see about that. Spurs. Is it Spurs after that?
Yeah.
Spurs,
Bruges, then Liverpool. Yeah.
Okay. We've won the last two games at the new ground, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
I think Unai's kind of got. All right, I know we got spanked 4-0 last time, but he tends to play the same way all the time, doesn't he? Where Emery can he's got a few more ideas up his sleeve. So I think we can give Spurs a bloody nose and get something off them. So I'll go draw at Tottenham. Liverpool, I don't fancy us at Anfield any season, so I'm going to say we'll lose that one.
So you're going 5 points in the league, 1 win, 2 draws, 1 defeat.
Classic George, that is, isn't it?
Sounds about right, lads.
Yeah.
Classic George.
Classic George. We love you, George. Don't go changing, mate. We love you.
Always brings the realism. Always. Just before we finish up, guys, make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe button. Help us on the road to 5k. We're well over 4,700. I don't know what Mark's been doing with my new graphics, but better better get on top of him to get me a new one for 4,700 on it. But make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, help us on the road to 5k. But I did want to talk about, obviously it's fans forum. Fans are the most important thing at Villa. And again, Frankie and I were chatting before we came on about this batch of games and just how many games there are, how many big games there are, and even after this international break coming to Christmas, trying to pick and choose the games that you're going to go to and the commitment it takes to even go to every game. The Bologna game not selling out at the minute. Are we seeing this now with fans kind of being almost priced out or having to really, really be selective about picking and choosing their games, Frankie? And is it going to be a situation where we are going to see, free seats at stadiums and Villa not selling out games and, as I say, the fan just really being hit in the pocket with it all?
Oh, yeah. It's an interesting one because I guess we'll see by the end of this calendar year is when, this crazy run of games is how it sells. And, if it sells out every single game, well, then it's like, the only way fans can really make any kind of statement on it is to just not go. Is to leave those chairs free. But at the moment, it feels like they are just going to get sold. Of course, will change if the form dips or whatever. But it's an interesting one. It sort of feels to me like ticket prices generally are like a wider football issue, particularly in this country. I feel like in Germany, for instance, there tends to be like a collective fan movement that really stands up. If they feel it's unjustified or they try and push prices too high. If there's any kind of controversy in Germany. Whereas over here, we tend to be a bit more tribal within our clubs, and I feel like it's probably something that fans collectively from all clubs probably have to come together, representatives and all that, to address it and talk about it, because the prices will just continue to go higher and higher. And I mean, in my own experience, I live in London, so I don't get to go to as many games as possible, so it probably doesn't affect me probably as much as it does people who are more primarily living in Birmingham who go more regularly, or anyone who lives outside and goes to games more regularly, I guess. So it is. They're the ones who probably have the best say on it. I'd say more so than I do. But I think that just one case study from me this season is I looked at going to potentially the Wolves game a few weeks ago. And I was going to buy in, and I looked at it and I thought, it's over 70 quid. And it's probably the first time I've looked at a Villa ticket and thought, you know what, I'm not going to spend that. So, there's probably quite a lot of other people having that. But as I say, if it keeps selling out, well, there's probably not much we can do until people stop going, really.
Yeah, that's the thing. The home games in particular, they keep selling out. It's just, for me, it's the planning and the commitment time as well. Like, we talked about the week where you've got Tottenham on the Sunday, Bruges on the Wednesday, and then Liverpool on the Saturday night. Now you're talking about if you've got a family, if you've got other commitments, you're going to have to do some serious travel. You're going to have to get some serious wife points to be able to do all those games in that week. But it is, Kev, isn't it? It's just that commitment for 7 games inside of 4 weeks, whether they be home, away, they're full days, 2 or 3 days away if you're talking about Bruges as well. It's a fantastic experience, don't get me wrong, but it's a hell of a commitment before you even factor in the financial cost.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think, if you're young enough to have minimal commitments and you're financially secure enough to not have to worry about the ever increasing costs, then, well, first of all, fair play to you. Because, I'm someone that I'm absolutely perfect example of this now. Someone who had a season ticket for the last 5 years, who hasn't got one this year, and I'm really having to pick my games. I'm picking up, the odd away ticket here and there if I can get to go. But often with those, I want to take my lad to a game to drive him to Ipswich, so probably the fuel could have got a ticket to Bayern Munich in hospitality. Yeah, it is a struggle. But this is the world we live in now. We're a top tier team. We're playing more games. But it's a hell of an outlay. And the other thing on top of it, of course, it is the travel. I kind of make a joke about it, but it does cost money. You've got to pay for parking if you want your car to be secure. If you don't, then, but you don't have to, of course. Food, you're taking a couple of kids to a game all of a sudden, you're probably getting them some food, maybe getting them some merch if they're at the ground, and it really does add up. I really feel like something needs to happen with this in football, particularly in this country, because obviously in foreign countries, you hear all the time about, what a great experience it is and how cheap it is. And I just wonder whether when the clubs are doing all they can do to get the revenues up and in, whether that will actually happen anytime soon. But it does feel a little bit like it's been taken away. For those that saw it, I was lucky enough to be asked by FanHub to be on a documentary recently, and a lot of that was talking about the price of success. And Villa have been absolutely amazing, and they've done some fantastic things. But there have been some regular fans that were there when we were in the Championship, home and away, when they shut that upper tier of the Trinity, that have been priced out now of going to watch their team. And you can say, well, that's just tough luck and away it goes. But I find that's quite sad for people.
Yeah. Michael in the chat said, I've spent close to £1,000 on tickets as my son and daughter come with me, and I've had to miss some games. CC says, apparently the fan experience in Germany is taken really seriously. I would love to know more on that subject, as there's a balance. And Rachel said, German football is set up very different to English football, rightly or wrongly. Gary said, people will pay it. It may never happen again. Rich, yeah, I absolutely agree. A lot of my friends who support Championship clubs are liking Villa at the moment. We're getting the neutral vote. People are just sick of the rich corporate clubs. Yeah, I mean, George, just to finish up on this, we were told about this kind of 25, 30,000 fan waiting list. And I guess that's the thing. Are the games going to continue to sell out like Frankie said? Or are we going to see the kind of run dry almost of Villa fans? Because are we going to be able to attract a neutral fan or a tourist fan or a fair weather fan, for want of a better phrase, or a fan that's going to adopt Aston Villa as their team? Are we going to do that quick enough? Are we going to maybe get that success quick enough to really kind of build that fan base to make sure that games are sold out week in, week out? Because even the success of Man City, they have games where they don't sell out. And so are we going to be in that situation moving forward?
Yeah, most probably. I mean, we had a good chat about this right at the start of the season, didn't we? And I've made that point myself. It's easy for the likes of Chris Heck, there's nothing to do with Birmingham, nothing to do with like English culture. They're the ones who set these prices, but they're not living in the real world that we're living in. All they're seeing is I can imagine he'd be watching this now and just be going, la, 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 la. They'll pay. If they don't pay, I don't care. Someone else will pay. And that's as simple as that. It's... Unfortunately, it's the working class bloke that gets drained. I'm finding now. I always found when I was younger, you remember the credit crunch and all that sort of thing. I just thought, oh, they're just words. I didn't really understand it. But you fast forward 15 years now. We're all a bit older. Families, real life has set in now, and you really can feel it. This cost of living crisis is a real thing. But unfortunately, like I said, the people above, they're out there. Chris Heck's job is to make money for the club. He doesn't care what us four sitting here, whether Kev's can't get his season ticket anymore, or whether I've got to try and pull a few strokes to get to games. They don't care. They're just out there to get the money. But yeah, as you say about Man City, I just wonder, is it worth a team like City having 1,000 empty seats, but at the same time they might have sold 5,000 corporate seats for stupid money that cover it anyway. So it's just one of them, isn't it? But yeah, it takes a long time to grow a brand and turn us into one of them super clubs. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. We might be like a bit of a trendy team at the moment, but we're not no Man United just yet, are we?
No.
Just to finish up, Frankie, do you see that Villa kind of continuing that brand, continuing to build that fan base, maybe even potentially talk of like new stadium or the expansion? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, these owners are very, very ambitious, and the Tyros as well, who seem to be involved. Now, I don't know a lot about them at all, really, but they seem to be quite heavily invested now at Villa. These are individuals who clearly are very ambitious with where they want to take Aston Villa. And, just even myself walking around London quite a lot in a Villa top all the time, particularly when Villa win against London teams. I tend to wear my Villa top a lot just because I get a bit quite like it. Quite, I might see the fans. And I was
just quickly. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do that around Newcastle because we just never win in Newcastle. So I'm waiting for that day.
Been waiting about 16 years for that, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I've noticed on 4 occasions now I've had people coming up to me very recently wanting to talk about Villa just in the street, and this is something I've never had as a Villa fan, really. And even I had two Colombian people come up to me and talk about John Duran. I was like, this is unbelievable. It's like for a day I was like, this is what it must be like to be a celebrity or something. This is incredible. Wearing a Villa top. This is amazing. It's I do think Villa, obviously we are certainly a little bit more in the global eye. I think certainly the Bayern Munich win is really going to help. I think a lot of people now know who John Duran is, and I'd say every scout from the top clubs in the world will be coming to watch him this season for sure. So I certainly think we're on our way. There's certain things we can do. I mean, Luis Miguel Echegaray, he's a journalist from ESPN, big Aston Villa fan, and he wrote a really good thread recently about how Villa needs to improve, say, like their promotion of Spanish-speaking tweets and all this. And I thought that was a fantastic point because, think of, Emi Martinez is one of the most famous footballers in the world with what he did at the World Cup. Argentinian fans obviously love the man. If Villa had this, we've got Unai Emery, all our Spanish-speaking coaches, various Spanish-speaking players. If we had more promotion of that, it's little things like that are going to make us a bit more of a closer to an elite club. But I certainly think that it's all there. The ingredients are there. There's still a bit a way to go. The stadium's an interesting one because there will come a point where we look at all of our peers who are all in bigger, more modern stadiums with better facilities, and there's going to come a point where Villa are going to have to make a big decision about what to do with our stadium, whether we rebuild like Liverpool did at Anfield or whether we make what would be a highly divisive move in moving the stadium. But that's probably a different conversation, really. But look, I think overall, Villa certainly we're on a very positive trajectory. And I think we will eventually, with these owners and the ambitions they have and the manager we have and the players we have, I think eventually we will continue to grow as a global brand, and one that I'll walk around London and more people come up to me and go, can I have your autograph? Because I love Aston Villa so much. I'm like, you're damn right you can. I'm a nobody, but you can have it.
Class. Michael's asking for a Spanish-speaking Villa podcast. I don't know if that'll happen on this one. Kev, you might be able to do a Greek-speaking one. You can do a few words in Greek. No.
Yeah, I don't know any Spanish. No, I know a bit of Spanish. I could do a little bit of a pidgin sort of Greek and German and French one, but no one would watch it other than the comedy value. So we'll scrap that. Who's this fella trying to speak Greek anyway?
But no, I make it. You're dead right, and it is going to be really interesting over the next few years to see, can we continue our progress in the league or maintain our position in the league? Can we keep it a balance of making sure we don't price out more and more fans out of the game, but also hope to grow the brand and grow the club and all that kind of stuff that we all need to. These days it's an absolute necessity. So it's going to be really interesting.
The thing, Rich, do you reckon they care? Like, if they all would you care if they have like less people in the ground but spending more on tickets? If they can really inflate a certain amount of tickets, do they really care about the sellouts anymore?
I think there's a certain point where they could probably cope with a certain number of empty seats, but empty seats on television doesn't look good,
does it? No.
And that atmosphere doesn't look good. So there's always that balance, So yeah, it's kind of how that looks, and if there's we and Frankie said, if performances drop and then attendances start to drop, then that kind of becomes a snowball effect as well. So as much as these performances and the feel good factor is amazing and everyone wants to go and watch Villa and all that kind of stuff is there at the moment, I think on that documentary, Kev, Luke mentioned it about, there's almost a case of like, don't forget what happened and how rapid that drop was. And you've almost got to make sure that you keep looking after those fans that were there, as you mentioned before, because football's cyclical, isn't it? And there's, you've got to seize the day, as your saying goes, but you've also got to, remember where you were before and who was kind of backing you at those times.
But it is difficult though as well, because no one's got a divine right to anything, have they, in this world?
No, exactly.
That is the real sort of harsh truth of it, and I am absolutely a victim of that, and I'm not moaning about it. It is what it is. But how do you say, well, you guys deserve it, we'll keep it at this price, and then these ones are, well, hang on a minute, we deserve it now because we've been paying for the last 2 years, and I worked hard to get my money, so you should, so it gets a bit messy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is definitely a balance.
Also, wonder if the club ever have a little worry that any team apart from the big boys that have really challenged for any period of time, they've all fallen away quite badly. Like Leicester had a little go, didn't they, for a few years? Ended up in the Championship. Southampton had a good little go, got up in the top 6 a couple of times, ended up in the Championship. Wolves had a good little go, a couple of 7th places.
George, don't say
now they're
it,
on the way
George.
down.
Don't say
I'm
it.
not saying it. I'm just you just got to think about this stuff.
Rich, can you hide it? Can you hide him, Rich? Can you hide him?
How long can you go without making yourself, proper up there?
Well, this is what I think we've finally got the owners in place, and is it? How did you pronounce it, Frankie? Ateros, this investment company. They've obviously got a bigger Ateros, this bigger stake now. So I think there's a lots of work done behind the scenes, and it's not a case of a Randy Lerner who was pumping more and more money in and then decided to stop. Or same with Doug Ellis. I think it's more of a rounded process now, more of a full investment proposition. So, but yeah, I think there is always that element of, at the moment, Man City, Manchester United, even Chelsea, even can always spend that extra little bit of money than Aston Villa can.
You can have a few years at it, but then if you don't crack it on a regular basis, you can't do it anymore. Everton, another example, the same. There's
always that element of, we could have pushed the boat out and got Janino, and would he have won us the league? Or we could have, Martin O'Neill wanted that 1 or 2 extra players, and that could have got us in the Champions League. So has Unai Emery got that gravitas? He's definitely got the quality, but he's already got us in the Champions League. We're already won 2 games in the Champions League, which has got us an extra £5 million or whatever. But has he got that almost gravitas to go to the board, or have they got the money, barring the PSR and FFP, to go, right, we can go after that extra player to get us, to keep us in that Champions League spot, or to keep us in those positions, or to get us to second, or even, dare I say it, first in the league. And that's the ultimate point, isn't it? That's the thing that we all want. And I don't know, but I think we've got the best manager and owners to give us that opportunity to do it that we've had in probably 40 or 50 years.
100%.
We this is when I go into that sort of Carpe Diem type territory, but I think we've got the best manager in the world. I don't think any manager, I don't think Pep Guardiola could have taken over that Gerrard team. Take nothing away from Pep's skill set, but if I managed Bayern, Barca and Man City, I would have won at least a few.
You'd have finished 4th.
Few Premier Leagues. No, look, Emery is just, what he's done to this club has been nothing short of miraculous. It really makes me actually truly believe in a higher power, because I think we finally found the Son of God, and he is here in Birmingham, staying at the Belfry probably still. He's just unbelievable, and I think with him in charge, all bets are off. All bets are off. Anything's possible in any game. Yet there is the real sense that obviously they're trying to do something big. Ateros, whatever you call them, are obviously a huge investment firm. Interestingly, with the Tuchel, the Spanish language and the Greek language, but Ateros, whatever it is Greek for partnership. So there's a little fact for you. But so
any chance of them ever buying the owners out? Do you think? Or they just on board together?
Who knows? I said this the other day. I want them to buy some shop in Aston for £950 billion. Just do a Chelsea. Something's got to go on somewhere. I'm actually thinking of looking to see if I can get some property in Aston, just in case they might try and make me an offer I can't refuse. But I close to my heart because I went to school there. So, but yeah, look, it's definitely going in the right direction. I look at it and think now, and I've said this a few times, but I just think the most important thing for us as a club, bar anything, is finishing top 4. Because if we can maintain that level of, obviously, competition with Champions League, the revenues that come with that. I think someone mentioned in the comments earlier, if you get in the playoffs in the Champions League, you get the 2 extra games. Yeah, but if you don't get in the playoffs, it means you've won more games. Therefore, you've got more prize money by winning more games. So it does balance that out. But and look, I know it wouldn't be a catastrophe if we finish 6th. It won't be the worst thing in the world. We've got a good squad, but if we really want to kick on and cement this club really properly in the big time, consecutive back-to-back seasons Champions League, I just think is absolutely key for us. So
it's going to take some doing. It will take some doing, won't it? You think of the games we had to win last year, and we only just about scraped it in the end, didn't we? It takes some bloody doing, but I hope we can do it.
But like we spoke about at the start of the season, obviously Klopp is great, but he's gone, and Slot's doing good. But they've got a real tricky spell, like we said, and who knows how they're going to turn out. They've not massively invested. Pep's fantastic, even though I gave him a bit of ribbon saying I could have done what he's done, probably couldn't. But their most influential player is out for the season, so they still probably will find a way. Arsenal looking really strong. They're looking pretty good. But outside of that, I'm not. Look, every team could give every team a bloody nose, but I'm not really scared of anybody, really, when Unai's in charge. It's only our frailties with our injury record and maybe the backlog of games we're going to have that worry me, actually, on a game-by-game basis. And I think anybody, we've seen Man City and Bayern Munich get turned over in recent seasons. Well, I actually think this season we're due a really big away win. We're going to go to one of the teams. I know we did it with Arsenal, to be fair, but like a real statement one as well. Maybe that'll be like a quarterfinal Champions League, whatever. So I am really still confident of 4th spot, particularly if this theory that we've got that we're starting slow to sort of build it up at the end of the night when the final song comes on. But there's no teams. I'm not like Newcastle a couple of years ago. I was like, crikey, they are a side. They're doing some really good stuff. I know Chelsea are making some noises, but they've still got a lot of problems, I think. So I'm feeling really good about it, about 4th spot.
I think that whole top half is going to be really competitive underneath the big 3. I think 4th to about 10th is pretty good.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Absolutely. Hans said 5th might be good enough for the Champions League, so you never know as well. And just to finish up, because we've been going an hour and a half, and we could probably go on for longer, but we've got to get off to bed, boys. But yeah, it's almost 2 years to the day of Gerrard's last game at Fulham. So how far we've come since that night, I mean, that is crazy. And we're playing Fulham on Saturday, so how amazing would it be, obviously, to get off to this next lot of games to a winning start and continue our push up the table and see how we're getting on for this season, because it is going to be very, very exciting. Frankie,
Rich, I was just going to say, do you remember? I think it's just past the anniversary of the game before that, where you and I got caught. Our pictures. We got caught on Sky Sports, didn't we? Like looking at each other like the most disgruntled look of anybody in the world. Like freeze frame. Like you're looking at me, I'm looking at you. We're going.
Both on death row.
It was
thinking
horrible.
Like Gerrard's never going to leave. Like, and then all of a sudden, this last 2 years has just been magnificent, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely amazing. And long may it continue. Right, that's it. No more questions. No more. It's been an amazing chat, but we've been going over an hour and a half. Frankie, absolute legend, mate. Thank you for joining us. Where can people find you and subscribe to your YouTube channel?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Honestly, I've absolutely loved this. I feel like I could carry on chatting for the rest of my life, and I might also get a Fulham tattoo just to thank them for getting rid of Steven Gerrard 2 years ago. But yeah, no, thanks much for having me on. You can find me on YouTube, All Villa No Filler. Just type that in. YouTube channel, please subscribe, and also on Spotify, Apple. We do like all the audio stuff as well, and then on Twitter, I'm just Frankie Maguire, but at Villa No Filler as well on Twitter. So yeah, just follow us, like, subscribe, all the good stuff.
Brilliant. Well, as I say, mate, you're welcome on our channel, our fans forum anytime, mate. So absolutely great having you on. Kev, George, thank you for jumping on as well. Brilliant chat. I was thinking, we maybe won't have much to talk about, but As always with Villa, there's loads to talk about and can't wait for Premier League to return this weekend. We're going to be back with our Fulham preview tomorrow, Wednesday night, because I have a very busy next few days after that with my daughter's 18th birthday. Yes, you believe it or not, I have an 18-year-old daughter. You wouldn't think it with the way I look, my age, but yes. So yeah, big couple of days, and hopefully Villa can win as well this weekend. So we'll be back with Fulham preview tomorrow, and hopefully one or two more shows coming up at the end of the week. Hopefully an opposition preview as well in the away end. Obviously match reaction, hopefully with a 3 points on the board, and full match reaction with the lads later. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, help us on the road to 5k. Make sure you follow Frankie's channel as well, All Villa No Filler. Thank you everyone for watching, and as always, remember, we all follow the Villa.